comfortable with that.
But some of the judges look at the conclusion very carefully. They consider that to be the outcome of the whole research.
That can be problematic. And when we're talking about LA County or state, where it's all volunteer judges, and some of these have been judging for 30 years, and they think they've got it, and they're not going to change their mind, and they're going to look for the conclusion. It's true that at LA County, we are going to give them very specific directions about there's many different formats. Don't judge people on the format, judge them on the science. They're going to be given that instruction over and over again, but there's still some judges that might be biased.
When we were writing technical papers for rocket engines, for example, we have a discussion of the data. And then at the end, we write what we got out of it for the program manager to give us money for demonstration.
Yes.
But I think that's very crucial to see how the kid can get a conclusion out of
Get
this
some money.
discussion that he has written there, how the data varied and all that.
Well, on some projects, they lend themselves more towards a conclusion than others as well, because in some cases, the experiment may just not work out, in which case, you're not going to really have any conclusion.
Well, the conclusion will be that it did not work.
Right.
That's a
But
conclusion.
well, it is a conclusion, but maybe you don't need a separate section to say that. So it sounds like that there's a fair number of people who like conclusions. By all means, throw one in. I'm less concerned.
If you be a judge, will you look at the conclusion, or you will just dismiss it?
I judge projects almost entirely on how they interview. The backboard, as far as I'm concerned, could have been done by their uncle, the scientist.
That's right.
So I judge almost entirely on interview and how they respond to questions and how they deal with their subject matter. So whether or not they have a conclusion or a discussion or a combination section, that doesn't matter to me.
Yeah, it seems like it's more important that they draw conclusions or understand why they couldn't draw
Yeah.
conclusions, and that that's somewhere in their work and that they can explain it rather than there's something nice and labeled conclusion.
Now, the truth is, if I can't find any conclusions, though, if I can't find any synthesis of the material of their experiment, that's a problem.
Yeah.
But part of the thing about judging is we have kids coming from lots of schools. In some cases, the people teaching the kids don't have any science background. I don't want to be biased with that kid's project because they didn't label a section the way I think it should be labeled. So I'm pretty darn flexible.
But if he doesn't have conclusion, and in discussion he does not conclude, then that is not a complete project.
Then that is a problem.
So that's why they have the conclusion, therefore the board kid to know that he has to do that. Okay.
I'm agreeing, but I'm also saying that with the groups of people I've worked with, there are kids that don't know how to write an abstract. An abstract is critical and can't do that, and they can't write the materials and methods. So in the end, you may want all of your kids to have a conclusion. Maybe as a group, maybe for your Olympiad, you should even say that that is the section you require, so that it's outlined and clear cut. But as a county person, I can't say that any specific section is required. I can't because I have these little schools and they all do different things. Okay,
Okay.
sorry.
Wrap up and,
I can be wrapped up now.
okay. Then thank
Any
you.
other things?
Thank you. So let's, we have just not that much left of our time. Let's just invite Mr. Sarkis, Barkudarian, Sona, please, Mr.
That was unfair.
Please, for the Q&A session, and let's see what questions you have for us, if specifically for the AESA Science Olympiad and mentoring.
What time are you gonna go to bed tonight after this? Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. You want to start? Do you guys want to sit over here, please?
Oh, yes, I can do that. Perfect.
Okay.
Okay, I will will write a note to myself. Thank you so much.
May I ask how many teachers are in audience?
Yes, thank you.
We almost had from every Armenian school participated today.
That's good. How many?
I'm going to apologize. There was no clause.
Nine schools
I
are
have no idea what time
participating.
it is.
That's great.
Sorry.
Question, please. Number one.
In reaching out to
Can you talk a little bit louder?
so on with mentoring students, how would you recommend reaching out to every project in a way that helps each student or each group have a successful, a really well thought out project? If given there's like maybe one science teacher for 50 or more students.
That's a good question to ask Wendy, and I have my opinions. I'll be humble.
There we go. She has opinions.
Okay.
No, actually, you can ask the parents of the students because there are many parents that they have science background.
Right.
And you ask if they want to volunteer their time. That's what we're doing in our school.
I'm loud. I'm good.
You're in
No,
the
no,
panel.
I'm sorry.
You gotta sit down. There's some process.
Yeah, so what I'm doing in initial letter that is going home to start the science fair, I put the bottom portion of the letter asks the parents where the students' information is there, the name, the grade level and everything. There's also a statement that if the parent is willing to volunteer, that means working with the students or being a part of the judging panel. So when I get the response, depending on their experience and the field that area and that they're working, I ask them how many hours they have available. And for the past years, we've had many parents that are volunteering their hours. Even on weekends coming to the school, we're providing them the lab and the equipment and everything. They're working with the students on their own time on volunteer basis. That's an excellent source.
Even students that are not their own student, not their own child.
They're not their own.
Oh, that's
no,
great.
they're not their own
Great.
child. No.
It's good.
And they volunteer for judging and also mentoring and helping the students. We have many parents that are volunteering their time.
That's great.
I have a question regarding the rubric.
Can you talk a little bit louder?
Yes, sure. I have
Oh,
a question regarding rubric here. I love it actually, and I was wondering if this is the only rubric that like all students should be focused on it and they should work on it.
Oh,
and then this is the rubric that the judges are going to use to. Okay.
I don't want to oversell that. Actually, that rubric, I don't really use rubrics. That rubric is mostly for the people in my department when they're grading standard lab reports. And it's just a way of thinking about it and checking off things.
But my recommendation, I think that would be awesome if you have such a rubric.
The LA County is coming up with a new one, is my understanding. There's one that they've used traditionally in the past, which is like the standard science fair one, you can like Google image it or something. I think they're trying to come up with a better one that's more adjustable. But this is one that I came up with earlier just to help some
So we
people.
don't have existing rubric right now at this
So
point.
right now, no, because it's very hard to have a rubric, especially when you are comparing apples to oranges projects.
True, but in terms of, let's say, considering hypothesis or ignoring it and things like that, well, these are things that should be explained, I guess, because not all judges are aware of it, so, I mean, it's not fair.
I know they're coming up with it. I know that they're working on that,
Okay.
so I can get back to them on
Okay,
that.
thank you so much.
Oh, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
Oh, I'm gonna play devil's advocate. What is your guys' thought, speaking with my principal today before coming, what do you think, a middle school science teacher at Septien, so what do you think the correct phrasing is, right, or the wording to tell parents, right, or to address parent involvement in science fair projects for like a middle schooler, 6, 7, 8, you know? What's enough, what's too much, what's the line? Like, what do you tell your students or your parents, or what phrase maybe in the contract, right?
Actually, in the initial letter, I mentioned I strongly encourage parent involvement.
Okay.
And I also emphasize that at the end, no matter how much of help the kid gets, for example, my own son was my student, and I worked with him. And he got first place in the county competition, special award and everything. But the bottom line is that there were some gossips around that, oh yeah, the mom is the teacher, so obviously he's going to go there. But my explanation for that would be when my son is standing in front of a panel of judges, 7 judges, and answering every single question. That's a proof that he learned something, and that's the purpose of science project. If you did a project and you learn, and you can dig and delve deep enough to understand every concept, you're worthy of that award. And your parents have done an excellent job. So we encourage parent involvement, because nowadays most of the parents have either engineering or medical or any area of the science, they have the background. So why not get the help? I mean, providing cell phone is not the only parental responsibility. You know, they can do more work, and they're willing to. But they're always, you know, skeptical about the comment that, okay, the mom did the job, the dad did the job. The dad is a dentist, so obviously, you know, the mom is a physician, obviously. But the thing is that if you clarify, and I have usually a meeting and introduction in the beginning of the year, and I clearly mention this, and I give the example of my own, that if the parents are involved and the results are outstanding, then the student deserves that recognition.
I don't think that was the question.
Yeah.
The parents' involvement is, I think, almost mandatory. That board, when they showed, the kids were 6th grader and 7th grader.
Right.
And mother had to drive them to the convalescent home and have the boy or the other one to evaluate that. If the parents would have not been involved, those projects would have not been here.
Of course. No, I mean,
Same
like,
thing with our kids.
right.
And relatives, parents, neighbors, somebody wants to help. It's
course.
very, very, very much necessary. And one other thing, Wendy said, elbow grease. Judges love a lot of work. Like the one in the back there, the board in the back from her brother, for example, he went there and interviewed 300 people. And he had the record of it. So when the judge looks at it, oh my God, poor kid, you know, at least for that.
I'll
Okay.
just throw out the average middle school survey project in the psychology category, surveys less than 30 people. Yikes.
Yeah. And then, by the way, they followed up, but since the board was too large to fit in my car, I couldn't bring them in.
Yeah.
And so 2 years later, they followed up. But the parents, get the PTA, get help you. They gotta be involved. Otherwise, the kid alone cannot do it.
Of course.
And as she said, the fact that parents did the project, if the kid understands and can answer any question I ask, he gets full credit. She gets full credit.
I would like to, oh, sorry, go ahead.
I think even when the
Louder.
I think even when the parents are starting to help their kids, they also learn from their parents how to cut, how to word, you know. I think parent involvement is very important. But my question to Linda is there like specific guidelines for judges? Because I'm still bummed that not all everybody was able to make this presentation, which was very, very good. I'm very impressed. Is there like guidelines that we can pass on to our judges a day or a week in advance so they can be all in one page when they're judging the students?
If you don't mind emailing me, I can go look up and see, because LA County normally has some judging guidelines. But the truth is, judging is always going to be a bit variable. One, because people go into it with their own biases, and two, because your ability to ask questions about a kid's project varies tremendously depending on your knowledge of that subject. So if I'm judging earth science, chemistry, biology, or environmental science, I can ask really penetrating questions and really get down to it. And if I'm judging engineering and physics, not so much. So there's always going to be a little bit of variability that we can't control for, but email me and I will see if I can get some judges' guidelines. every year they modify the speech that they give judges at county a little bit. And so I can see what the latest iteration is.
My main concern is like if somebody doesn't have a conclusion or somebody does not have a hypothesis, maybe that information is hidden in another part of that presentation, like in discussion or other stuff, so people do not
Right.
bring down any points on any key
So-
that does not have it.
So I can assure you that in LA County, the judges are repeatedly told, now there are some old school judges, but they are repeatedly told that there is not one format. You cannot be biased because somebody has just a pretty backboard. You can't be biased because they don't have a hypothesis, because not all experiments have hypotheses. And they're very specifically told those three things. And I think for your science fair and for your purposes, or your science Olympiad, by all means, demand a certain format and get, that uniformity going. But at county, we can't demand it. As I say, we have little schools and judges are not supposed to be biased. If you are missing the procedure, that's a problem. If you have no errors, no synthesis at all, that's a problem. But what section you put it in, some of the teachers don't know. So the kids don't know. Can't blame the kids.
Next question? Oh, okay.
Go ahead, Roger.
There is another one.
It's not so much a question as a methodology that we have thought about it. And this year's, like I said, the Science Olympiad Committee has done miraculous jobs in terms of ideas that we have had from it. Is we have professors, faculty from universities, and professionals going to schools and give a 10 to 15-minute talk. That's it. Nothing too much to lose the attention of the youngsters, the students. But this is a program that we have initiated on paper. It hasn't really happened yet, but I'm just saying that some ideas, some thoughts of some kind of an experiment can come from this kind of an interaction. Professionals from the field, scientists, engineers are doing some kind of work, to go to schools, different schools, once a month at different schools. And I think we should be able to see some new ideas in the minds of the students for potential projects. That's another source.
My main question is that at the time being, I'm a master's student and I did my master's project, and I also published 3 papers in Science Direct journals. So the science work does the same that you said now. My main question is that now I did some judges in the IEEE journals. So I just want to know that is there any difference between a middle school student's paper or with the PhD student or master's student paper? Is there researches is the same or they're different?
No, it's significantly different. So if...
For judging, as a judge.
Yeah, as a judge, it would be significantly different because if I'm doing literature review prior to some real science, we're talking pages and pages and pages of synthesis and summary. 30, 50, 100, who knows what. For a middle school student, if I can get 2 pages out of them, I'm thrilled. For a high school kid, they should be able to do twice that easily. And I'm not including figures or other support. Sometimes they think that it has to be all written words, and I say, no. If you find research that has graphs or pictures or some other kind of figure that help you explain it, include those in your background. If it helps you, you put it there. But yeah, 2 pages. I'd say for an average lab that I assign in class, if I get 3 paragraphs, I'm thrilled.
May I make a comment about selecting projects? The one that I found the most interesting and the ones who can lead to get the top award rather than just standard is to see what their parents, relatives, neighbors are doing and doing a research there. For example, we had a dentist son there And he went and studied how titanium fuses into bones, or the bones fuse into titanium. He spent like 6 months on it, but nobody could beat him. That was an obvious top of the work. So it encouraged them to, like, if the parents are jewelers, when they're fusing gold, there's a very interesting phenomenon occurring there. And they can work on that and write a paper and project on it, different temperatures, different flows, and this and that. And they can be winners because they're not in the standard in the books there.
I have a question, like, do you, as a judge, do you look, like, for example, a 6th grader does a project that's equivalent to like 8th grader, like,
Oh.
do you think,
No, actually, we consider grade a bit. We consider grade a little bit. In the end, we are looking for the best project. But let's say we might have 2 equivalent projects. That doesn't happen, although that happened 2 years ago with Extincted. They have, if there's equivalent projects, then we might say a few things. These are considerations that would vary by judge, and maybe I should say this, maybe I shouldn't. But you can say, oh, this person is very young and did exceptional work, let's give them the thumbs up. We alternatively could say, oh, this is an 8th grader, this is or a 12th grader, this is their last go at it, this is really good, the other person has more chances. You're playing a game there. I don't know if that's a good thing. It's usually better that you figure out what are the difference and sort of look part by part and determine it. Giving 6th graders, I'm gonna put it this way, the kids know. So when a project wins and they know that their project was better, and they're saying, oh, well, he just got it because he was in 6th grade and he was cute and adorable, that's not great.
no, I'm not saying like 2 identical subjects, I'm talking about like if the kid didn't learn that subject yet, but working on the project above his
They're not
ability.
necessarily given preference.
No?
No, generally not.